Again, I'm Christine Daal from Fashion Angel Warrior, and we are doing our Facebook and Instagram Live, which we do every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and tonight we're doing a live Q&A, so get your questions ready. I already have 9 questions that I'm going to answer that were already sent in, and then I will try to get to as many other questions as I possibly can within the half hour. So don't forget to give me your hearts, give me your thumbs up as we're going along. I like to hear from you. It's like oxygen to me. So if you're liking this information, if you are enjoying this, please let me know. Also, if you're on Instagram, this video will be deleted at the end of this broadcast. However, you can hop on over to Facebook inside our Fearless Fashionpreneur Facebook group and watch all of the replays. This is number 39, so there are literally 38 other videos you can watch, all free business tips and advice, all right? Okay, so our first question comes from Linda, and she wants to know, do I need to worry about a factory saying that the patterns they developed for me are theirs and not mine? So Linda, the answer to that question is no. You really don't need to worry about that. Once you pay for something, it's yours. And I've never seen a pattern maker or a factory or a manufacturer try to say that they own your patterns or that they won't give you the patterns at the end of it. If you've paid and you're squared away, you own everything that they do for you, and you shouldn't have a problem with that, okay? Yeah, sometimes there's problems on Instagram, guys, so if you can't hear me or it's not sounding good, hop on over to Facebook, okay? All right, great. So our second question comes from Lanadine. She's on tonight, which is great. And you're dancing, which is awesome. I love it. So Lanadine wants to know, logo versus brand name, what is the difference? Okay, so your brand name is just like your name, the literal name of whatever your brand is, right? Let's take, for instance, Nike or Adidas, right? So just the word Nike, that's their brand name. Adidas, that's their brand name, right? Your logo is actually the mark or the symbol or the text design, the actual design of the text that's used to represent your brand name, okay? So in our example of Nike, they have the swoosh, right? So that's their symbol that they use as part of their logo, but they also write the word Nike in a very distinct script, and so that's considered part of their logo as well. So you don't necessarily need to have a symbol to go along with your brand name. Some people like to have a little symbol. Some people like to have something that's kind of small, like MK for Michael Kors, or the little Tory Burch, the 2 T's, right? So some people like to have that symbol as it's very recognizable and it can be used for a lot of different things, but you don't have to. So that's important to know. And then also, if you do want to trademark, which you should trademark eventually, you'll want to trademark both the name and the logo together at the same time. That way you save money. So definitely make sure you do your logo first before you actually go through the trademark process. And if you need help developing your logo or developing your timeline, take our digital marketing masterclass. It is awesome. I put the link in the bio on Facebook, and you can definitely join that way. Okay, we're having some problems on Instagram. Sorry guys, you're gonna head over to Facebook. 1 second. I don't know why. Instagram's been having issues. Okay. Danielle says, I've heard we should do the words and the logo on different trademark applications instead of together. Have you heard of what gives you more protection? I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think you can do it together. It's not a problem. It's not a problem to do them together. I did mine together. You're totally fine. No one's gonna try to take your logo, trust me. Okay, perfect. Okay, was that helpful, Landine? Okay, great, awesome. Next question comes from Daniela, she's also on. She wants to know, how about inventory? I know the recommendation is not to build it, which is my recommendation, yes, but styles are usually cheaper the more you order, even if there's no minimums. What are your thoughts? So yes. Typically, you'll get a cheaper price. Whoops, hold on 1 second here. Typically, you'll get a cheaper price the higher the quantity that you order, right? The larger your quantity. But there's usually a huge gap in the total production price that you end up spending. And typically, most of the time, new startup designers can't afford it. So let me give you 2 examples. And these are 2 examples from 2 of my actual clients when we were working together. So one of them had 8 styles, and she was thinking about doing it domestically and wanted to do 50 pieces per style. So that would be 400 units, which is very doable domestic. And we were averaging around $20 per style for this particular garment that she was making. So at 8 styles, 50 pieces per style would be 400 units at $20 a piece. That would be $8,000, right? On the flip side, she was like, well, why don't I produce overseas so I can get a cheaper cost? So she was thinking about going overseas and doing 8 styles, but now her minimum would be 1,000 per style. So she'd have to do 1,000 per style, or 8,000 units at $10 a piece. So she'd get the price down to $10 instead of $20, but she'd have to spend $80,000. So you can see there's a huge difference between spending $8,000 for your production or spending $80,000 for your production. And yes, you're getting the cost down, in this case by half. It started at $20 a piece and you're getting it to $10 a piece. But most of my clients don't have $80,000 that they can use to invest in their production. And if you plan to do crowdfunding or something, maybe you can gain that much, but I wouldn't bank on it, okay? Another example, so I have another client that's doing an evening wear line, and she has 10 bodies, 10 styles. She wanted to do domestically 20 pieces per style, and it was gonna cost her $250 per dress. So the total for all of that production-wise would be $50,000, which was doable for her. She actually has that capital. Then she was like, well, why don't I go overseas? I can get a much cheaper price. And yes, you can get a cheaper price by going overseas, but again, the minimum quantity goes up. So she would have to do her 10 bodies times 1,000 pieces per style, times the unit cost would be maybe $25. So she went from a $250 unit cost to $25 unit cost. That's a drastic cut in cost price. But now her total production cost is $250,000, which she doesn't have. So $50,000 or $250,000. I would rather start out and just invest $50,000 and see how it goes and make sure that this is going to be a viable business than throwing $250,000 into it and not even knowing, like, is this viable or not? So sometimes you can get the cost way down per style, but you end up spending so much more for actual production. So to answer your question, it's just good to work out the numbers in both scenarios and see what's doable and what really works for you. Okay, Danielle wants to follow up. Is 20 pieces per style a good start? I'm just wondering what amount to start with. There's no real good amount to start with. It kind of depends on what you're doing. Do you already have people that are interested in buying it? Did you do pre-sales? Are you selling online? Are you selling to stores? It kind of depends on all of those variables, so I can't give you a blanket answer like, yes, it's good to start out with this many pieces. Also depends on the number of sizes that you're doing. If you have 4 sizes in your size range, if you have 10 sizes in your size range. So it depends on a lot of different variables. And like I always recommend, I recommend you pre-sell your line so that you're actually not ending up with any production or, any inventory. And you're only doing your production on what you've actually cut and already sold. So in the beginning, that's the best way to get started. It's the least risk involved. And that's how you should really get started. So Danielle, we can work together. Since you're in the FSI group, we can work together on that. Okay, next question is coming from Louisa. She wants to know, regarding a photo shoot I was invited to be a part of, how much do I charge for renting my designs for the shoot? And then she adds, it's a large hair company and it's a nationwide editorial. So Louisa, to answer your question, this really all depends on how badly you want to be part of the photo shoot. So some companies aren't going to really pay you anything because they're providing you with professional photos and lots of exposure. So they kind of look at it as like it's free PR for you, and so they're not really going to pay you anything. If it's a really large enough company, you might be able to get them to pay you, and I don't know how big this hair company is. You're saying that they're large, but I don't know who they are. You might be able to get them to pay you, but it might also depend on your social media following. Like if you have a really high following, like at least 10,000 followers, they might be willing to do it because maybe they know that it'll be beneficial for them because you're going to be posting it on social media and stuff like that. If you don't have 10,000 followers, they're not really gonna get anything out of it except for using your designs. And there are a million designers out there, and they could just go to the next one that wants the exposure for free. So you might not really have a leg up here to ask for anything to get paid. At the very least, I would just ask for them to cover your dry cleaning cost, right? So you're probably gonna have to dry clean your dresses or whatever samples you're lending them. And so I would definitely ask for those costs to be reimbursed, or just make a blanket, you know, $50 or $20, whatever it's gonna cost you to dry clean. And then of course, make sure you get some kind of a contract signed with a deposit or a credit card on file, so that God forbid anything does happen to your samples, they'll have to actually reimburse you for the entire cost of the sample if it gets ruined or damaged or lost or whatever. Okay, so hopefully that helps you, Louisa. Okay, hope you guys are getting your questions ready. We're on number 5 already. So Pamela wants to know, how do you find a professional fit model? That's a very good question, Pamela. And the best way is to go through a professional modeling fit modeling agency. And there's tons here in New York City. I don't know if you're in the New York City area. You can go through FSA or Gramercy Models or Fit Models or True Model. But whatever city you're in, you can just Google fit modeling agency in such and such a city, and I'm sure most of them will come up. Keep in mind that most fit models charge around $250 to $275 per hour, and that's the typical going rate. Michelle has a question. I'm going to write your question down, Michelle, and if I have time at the end, I'm going to get to it. You want to know what the typical lead time is for pre-orders. Okay, great. Okay, our next question comes from Ashley Powder. She wants to know, is there any advice I have for moving overseas to small tailors and not factories? For instance, doing 200 pieces per style. So Ashley, this really depends on the type of clothing that you're making. And keep in mind that 200 pieces per style may be much too large for an actual small tailor. But at the same time, it's probably too small for an overseas factory, right? And it also really kind of depends on who you know. Like, do you have any overseas connections? Do you know someone who does have overseas connections? I mean, I have many connections with people in Taiwan and China and Hong Kong and Vietnam and India and certain areas like that, but I don't know what area you're thinking of. If it's an area that you don't know anyone, you might need to take a trip out there and kind of do some of the legwork yourself and do a lot of the searching yourself to really look for someone. I know many companies, and I have heard numerous stories of designers who literally got on a plane, went somewhere, maybe they were going to look, or maybe they were just going for a vacation, and then they stumbled upon like a skilled artisan that could make shoes or could make bags or could make something, and they were like, wow, I could employ this person to make my garments, and that's how they literally got started. So you might have to, at the end of the day, hop on a plane, go somewhere, and really do a lot of the digging yourself to really look around and see who it is that you want to work with. And if you have roots in another country, like if your heritage comes from a certain country, or you have family in a certain country, you might want to start looking there first, as it might be a lot easier for you, and it might be a nice tie-in with your USP of, this is why I decided to make my items in this country. So hopefully that helps you. Okay, number 7, Daniela again has another question. Should my blog have the same name as my clothing line? Is this best to keep everything consistent? I saw Kate Spade's is called something else, so I'm curious. So Danielle, it really all depends on the goal of your blog. If the goal of your blog is simply to drive traffic to your online store, to build your online store, and maybe your blog is going to be about a variety of different things, then no big deal. You can call it the same name. There's nothing wrong with that. J. Crew has the same name of their blog, Anthropology. They all have blogs under their own name, and that's totally fine. But I would say if your goal is to have a thriving blog, like if that's really a goal, like yes, I want to have an online store, but I really, really want to have an online thriving blog that's like amazing, then you might want to make the blog name different than your actual clothing line. There's a couple examples. Kate Spade's is different. Yes, it's called Behind the Curtain, I believe. Kate Spade used to have a travel blog, which they got rid of. I'm sorry they got rid of it because it was so great. And then like Forever 21's blog is called 21st Street. So you can kind of name it something similar, or like a play on your own blog, that on your own website, that kind of thing. Bonobos has 2 blogs. They have one with their name and one totally separate from their name. So it's really up to you and what you want to make it about. And I would also add that if your blog is going to be something very, very specific, like only travel, then yes, you might want to call it something else. If it's going to be like Budget Babe or something, like that's a blog all about how to save money and do different things, right? It's gearing the blog to a specific customer, then yes, you might want to name the blog something else. Does that help? Hopefully that helps you, Daniela. Okay, another question from Daniela. For a domain name, do I need a .com? You don't absolutely need .com. It's definitely preferable as it's the most commonly used out there, but keep in mind there's so many new endings that didn't exist before. You can get .nyc, you can get .online, you can get .store. So I think you can even get .shop maybe. So there's so many different endings now that you don't necessarily need to get .com, and it can still sound cool and not like .net or something, right? Like that doesn't really sound that cool. But .store or .online or .nyc sounds cool to me. So I would say you don't have to get .com. You can definitely get other ones if you want. Okay, Tiffany, I'm going to come back to your question in 1 minute because I have one more question to go. Okay, Eleanor asks, should I open a new account on Facebook or Instagram, etc., in order to open my page? I'm assuming she's talking about her business page, or use my existing account. So this really depends on your following, how big of a following you already have, and whether or not you want to keep your personal stuff separate from your business, which I do recommend. For Instagram, you can actually switch it back and forth. So you can start out with a personal page and switch it over to a business page at any time, and vice versa. On Facebook, you need to have a personal profile in order to create a business profile page. And those 2 pages are completely different. They act completely different. They are not the same on Facebook. So just keep that in mind as well, that on Facebook, you definitely will have separate pages. On Instagram, you can toggle back and forth if you want to create a new page for your business. All you have to do is go to your personal profile and tell people, hey, don't forget to like my business page at blah, blah, blah. Or if you're going to transform your personal page into your business page, I would just go through and kind of clean up your personal page so it's not so personal looking and it's more business. And it's really clear, great quality images that look phenomenal that people will actually want to follow, okay? So hopefully that helps, Eleanor. Okay, going back to Michelle's question, what's the typical lead time for pre-orders? I would say the typical lead time is about 4 months, but it really depends on how fast you can get your production done. You don't want to promise your customers that you're going to ship them at a certain time and then not hit that deadline. That's probably the worst thing you could possibly do because people will lose trust and value in you. And so it's really, really important that you give yourself enough lead time and that you know how quickly your production's actually going to take in order to get done. And typical production takes anywhere from 4 to 6 months. Now, that's not the actual sewing of your garments. The sewing portion of the process only really takes maybe a week, 2 weeks, depending on how many units you're making. But the entire production process is much more involved than just sewing your garments. You now need to order your fabric. Fabric can take 45 days to come, depending on where it's coming from. Do they have to make it? Is it readily available? Is it in stock? You have to order trims. Same thing with trims. You might have to do your grading and you might have to do marking. That all takes time. You might have to digitize your patterns. That all takes time. So there are a lot of steps involved with the production process that all need to be done within that time frame. And you don't always necessarily want to do any of that stuff ahead of time. I'm not going to order my fabric ahead of time until I know how many pieces I'm cutting. I'm not going to do a marker ahead of time until, again, I know how many pieces I'm cutting, because if I'm cutting 50 pieces small and 100 pieces size medium, my marker is now going to be a 2-to-1 ratio, not a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm not going to have one small for every medium. I'm going to have one small for every 2 mediums. So a lot of the steps can't be done properly until you've already taken your orders. So that's why I suggest waiting. Even for your grading, I suggest waiting on doing your grading, because If you grade your style 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 and no one orders a size 2, why bother grading it? It's an extra cost for you. If you're not gonna cut a size 2, don't do the grading for it, right? So I recommend waiting to do all of that until you've taken your orders, and then that's why the production process can take 4 to 6 months. We have an entire online course called Production Like a Pro that goes into very, very specific detail, exactly the production process, the quality control process, exactly everything you need to do in order to make sure your production comes out pristine and you ship on time. So that could help you as well. Okay, Tiffany's question. I found a company that can do my logo, but is small subscription fee per month. Is that common? No, that's not common. Subscription fee per month. You shouldn't be paying per month for anything. If someone is gonna do your logo, it's a one-time thing. They do it, you pay for it, it's done. So I'm not sure why they're offering you a subscription. Like, you're not gonna need ongoing logos, you just need a logo one time and then you're done with it. So I recommend, Tiffany, that you go to one of those logo design websites that I recommend. You're not in the FSI course, that's why you probably don't know about them. But anyway, I'll give you a little freebie, even though you're not in the FSI course. You can go to things like Logo Genie or 99 Designs and create a logo contest. And that's one of the best ways to get a logo done for really affordable price. It should be around like $250. You don't need to pay more than that. All right? Sound good? Is that good for you? Are you guys liking this information? Give me a thumbs up. Give me your yes. Let me know that you're loving it. And let me know if you have any other questions. We've got a couple minutes left. I'm just gonna write down your question, Tiffany. Awesome, yes, I love it. I'm so glad that it's helping you. Oh, there we are. Okay, hopefully I didn't lose you guys. Okay, I'm gonna totally mess up your name. I'm really sorry. Ibrium, I'm sorry. Have I ever rented a booth at Magic? I was wondering how the booth set up and what you would prepare for such a show. Okay, that's a great question. It's also a very in-depth, lengthy question. But to give you the short answer, no, I've never rented a booth at Magic. They are extremely expensive. And I teach an entire course called Successful Sales Secrets where I go into really, really detail on how to set up your trade show booth, what you need to do prior to the show, what you need to do during the show, and what you need to do after the show to make sure that it is a huge success for you. I've seen so many designers go to these shows and not get any traffic and not get any sales. So it's really, really important that one, you do your homework and research the best show for you and where your specific buyers are going. Two, that you already have some sales under your belt. You already are selling into some stores because it's gonna help you when you go do the show to have a leg up against all of your competitors if you already have that experience. And number three, to do the proper preparation for the show. You're gonna wanna have all your banners and your signage. You're gonna wanna promote it across all social media. You're gonna wanna reach out to all of your buyers and your buyer list to do email marketing campaigns to them and to really entice them, to give them a reason to stop by your booth. Because if you don't give them a reason to stop by your booth, they're not gonna stop by. And keep in mind that most buyers, 85% of the money that they're spending at trade shows is already allocated to current vendors. So if you're a new vendor, they've only got 15% left for you, and they most likely are not gonna wanna spend it all in one place. So they're gonna be really picky and really choosy about who they're going to. So hopefully that answers your question, but definitely check out the Successful Sales Secret course. I'll put a link to it in the bio description for the video, okay? Hopefully that helps you. Jeremy wants to know, how long does a typical prototype take to make? That's a great question, Jeremy. Hold on one second, I'm gonna write it down. Okay, how long does a typical prototype take to make? I can't talk tonight, guys. It really depends on how complex your style is. A very simple style, maybe from start to finish of fabric sourcing, doing your sketch, doing a tech pack, and making your first pattern, making your first sample, doing a fitting, revising it, going back and forth a couple times. That might take 4 months for a very simple style. It might take 6 months for a very in-depth style. So it kind of just all depends. The actual time that it takes is dependent on a lot of different variables. You know, is it really difficult to find the fabric that you're looking for? Maybe the fabric that you choose, you start to work with, and then you realize once you do the fitting that you don't like that fabric anymore. It's not working the way that you thought it was going to work. Now you have to find a whole new fabric, right? There's just so many different things that can pop up during the process that can make it very long. So I always say, as a general rule of thumb, and of course this is just a general rule, 4 to 6 months, like you want to keep in mind to make a prototype. So allot yourself that time because you don't want to rush your vendors or your pattern makers. They're not going to be too happy with you. Hopefully that helps. Daniela wants to know, how soon do you recommend to get a personal accountant or lawyer? You can definitely wait a while for that. You don't need one right away in the beginning. You can do everything yourself. I mean, it depends on your budget. If you have the budget for it, great. But if you don't, like most of my clients don't, then I would say you can wait a year, 2 years. You don't really need that right away. It's going to be a huge expense and you're not going to really see the benefit of it. Okay, Tiffany, just saved me a ton of money. I love it. That's what I'm here for, to save you guys money. All right, guys, well, we are out of time. You guys had great questions tonight. Sorry about Instagram. I don't know what happened, but you're going to have to watch it on Facebook. And that's it. So next week, there will be no Facebook Live because we will be in LA. I'm super excited. So we're going to be showing at the LA Textile Show. So if you are from LA or if you're on the West Coast, definitely pop on over and stop by our booth, 506 to 510, and come say hi. I'd love to meet you. I'll also be taking appointments in LA. So I will be there the entire week from March 5th all the way to March 9th. So if you are in the LA area and you want to meet up, you want to have a strategy session, let's do it. Let's get your business going. Let's make 2018 your best year ever. So message me, email me, contact me, and I will set up an appointment with you. And so we won't have a Facebook Live because the time difference, I'll be at the show. I won't be able to do it. So sorry, guys. You'll have to wait 2 weeks and we'll do another one in 2 weeks called What Does the Word Launch Really Mean Anyway? Thank you, Tiffany. I'm looking forward to a little bit warmer weather. It's a little, although it's been pretty nice here on the East Coast, but it'll be warmer in LA. Also, we did a TV interview yesterday. I'm super excited. It was awesome. If you didn't watch it, you can click in anywhere on social media. I've posted it and watch our interview, but it was all about our New York City Fashion District manufacturing tours. So don't be surprised if the April 19th one sells out fast. So definitely book it now. The March 23rd one sold out like a month ago. So you don't want to miss the next one, April 19th. Go to fashiontour12.eventbrite.com to sign up. And that's it, guys. I love you all, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.